Before we get to the content of this video, I want to add a disclaimer. The story is a work of art. It can be very dark and triggering to some people. It is based on my own personal experience with first episode Psychosis, which happened in 2015, 5 years ago from today. Since then, I have made many strides to recover through medication and therapy, and I am in a much better place now than where I was within this story. My channel is somewhat of an avant-garde, philosophical, experimental art project. It is in no way a representation of my current health. These are scripts that I write for the purpose of these videos. The lack of imagery is also a creative decision that I have made. You can't take a picture of the mind. With that done, enjoy. It was my senior year. I just turned 18. Finally, I'm an adult. I'm about to experience the next big step of my life after I graduate. Only a month left to go. Then, that day happened. It was my first vivid experience with psychosis. I was having an intense argument with a close friend of mine. On the outside, I was trying to remain cool, calm, and collective. But on the inside, I was filled with rage. I had so much pent-up anger and frustration. We entered a restaurant, and then I heard it. Someone just shouted straight into my ear exactly how I was feeling. The anger went away. It turned into fear. I was shaken. Who just shouted out of nowhere? And even worse, my own thoughts. I asked my friend, "Did you hear that?" While looking around for the origin of the shout. The situation went awkward after that, and I decided to go home. The next day I was in class, restless and concerned about what happened. I excused myself from the classrooms to see the school mental health expert. I told the expert my experience yesterday. I was given advice on what I should do, but I didn't take it. I made an excuse for what happened. It was just a coincidence. A very strange, one-in-a-million experience. Nothing more. For the next 30 days, I rarely went to class. My friends at school, despite it, began to get concerned. I explained to them that I rode my bike to school for attendance, and then I'd take off to a park with a view of the water. It was nice to be there by myself. It was silent, and it was peaceful. I'll pull out my journal on that bench and begin to write. It calmed me. I realize now in retrospect that was a start and how I began to cope with my condition. The truth is far more sinister. The way I experienced it was as if my journal was speaking to me. It was my outlet. It was a manifestation of my thoughts through ink on paper. I didn't even attend my own graduation because I found more comfort within the pages of my own thoughts. I just wanted to be alone. That summer was rough. For the next 60 days, my condition was only getting worse until it peaked. Without a diagnosis and getting the treatment I needed at the time, my thoughts started to get more and more disorganized, more radical, and more delusional. I began to experience something that I would refer to as a grandiose delusion. I believed that I was in a virtual world, with me in the center of it. I began to question the world around me, what's real and what isn't real. Then I became filled with paranoia. I thought people were out to get me to uncover my forbidden knowledge. Sometimes the delusions got so bad that I would dissociate, in which I black out and can't remember what happened. And then one day I wake up in the hospital, considering dangers to myself and possible threats to others. That was my first hospitalization. I don't remember anything that happened right before. I'm glad I don't remember it. It took me a whole day to even realize I was in the hospital. It was the scariest moment in my life. One moment I'm home, and the next I'm somewhere unfamiliar, and I went to shock. I had to be tied down, injected with Faldo, and put into isolation. Sadly for the episode, I was lucid enough to remember. I remember my diagnosis. It was in the recreation room on my second hospitalization. I was sitting on the couch. The doctor stepped in, asked for the room, and it was just us two. The doctor sat down next to me. That was strange, I thought. Usually they called me into the office if they needed to see me. "What's going on?" I asked. The doctor began to speak. "You may very well have psychosis. The symptoms you're experiencing, they're not normal. It can be very serious." The doctor kept speaking. I was not listening. My world collapsed after that. I just nodded along. I kept thinking there's no way that it could be that serious. I was in denial. I didn't know exactly what it was that I had. I thought of it like a cold. I take my medicine for a couple days and I'll get better. That's what I thought. 1 week I stopped taking my medicine, thinking I was better. The thoughts came back. On my third and thankfully last ride to the hospital was almost like bliss. I found the whole situation hilarious at the time. I couldn't stop laughing. It wasn't funny anymore when I was administered my medication and came to my senses. When I eventually got to my room in the psychiatric ward, I closed the door behind me. For some reason, it just hit me all at once. I'm going to be isolated from the world for a third time. This illness I have is quite something else. It's not something I can get cured of. It's something I have to manage for quite possibly the rest of my life. I already lost all my friends, and now I'm going to also have to spend Christmas alone in the ward. Nobody understands me. I don't even know who I am anymore. It was at that moment I realized I needed help. I never felt so alone before. I broke down and cried, uncertain of the future ahead of me. If you made it to the end, I'd like to thank you for listening to my story. Schizophrenia is a serious mental health disorder that affects just 1% of the population. Schizophrenia is crippling. It's an injury to the brain. Nobody experiences schizophrenia the same. It is a spectrum in which the severity of the symptoms can vary from subtle to severe. It is a predisposed condition. It is passed down genetically. You can have it and never notice. Men with schizophrenia are likely to experience their first psychotic episode in their late teens to early 20s. Women are likely to experience their first psychotic episode in their late 20s. Marijuana, mainly the consumption of high amounts of THC, is considered to be a trigger for psychosis, along with other hallucinogenic drugs. Other triggers can be moments in life that causes a sudden high amount of stress, such as a breakup, getting fired from your job, or death in the family. If you believe you are experiencing auditory or visual hallucinations, confusion of what's real or what isn't real, delusional thoughts, irritability, that you're isolating yourself from others, that your behavior has changed, that perhaps you can't sleep and the symptoms get worse the longer you're awake, do not be afraid to go to your primary care doctor. Mental illness is very serious, and you will not be stigmatized or judged for it. It is just as normal as breaking your arm. You will need a diagnosis, medication to treat it, and therapy to help you manage. Your doctor can get you a treatment team of psychiatrists and therapists to help you during this hard time. People with schizophrenia are much more at risk of taking their own life. If you are ever in such a situation in which you feel like taking your own life, do not be afraid to call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is on your screen, or to dial 911. I used to blame myself, thinking there could have been a way to prevent it. I used to hate myself that I have this condition. Since then, I have learned to love myself. This condition is only a part of me. It is not what defines me. Take care.